And what that means. But enough of that. I'd like to thank the elders and Chad for allowing me the opportunity to bring this lesson to you. This is one of the most powerful lessons, not that I will deliver, but the Bible delivers in the entire Bible. If you've studied your Bible and you've studied Matthew chapter 23, this is one of the most scathing rebukes known to humanity. And it is my belief that through this chapter, it solidified this man is a dead man. So, we will not get through with this chapter tonight. Chad said to me as he asked me to do this, he said, now don't feel any pressure to finish the chapter. And I thought, I'm not going to finish it. Are you kidding? But I will kind of give the outline, and then we'll take off from there. Matthew chapter 23 can be broken down basically into 4 sections. 1 through 7, which we hope to accomplish tonight, is Jesus exposes the hypocrisy and motives of the Scribes and Pharisees. Say that one more time. Jesus exposes the hypocrisy and motives of the Scribes and the Pharisees. That's 1 through 7. In 8 through 12, Jesus teaches against using religious titles. In 13 through 33, Jesus pronounces 8 woes against the Scribes and Pharisees. And in 34 through 39, Jesus mourns the coming persecution of his followers by the Jews and the Jewish leaders. So, like I say, if we get through 1 through 7, I will feel like that we've accomplished what I set out to do. So let's start 23, verse 1. Then spake Jesus to the multitude and to his disciples. Now that would seem like just a pretty simple statement. Well, who would make up the multitude is the question. And I don't know if there's a different position. My position on it, it would be the Jews themselves, any others who happen to be there at the temple. But then I believe either the Scribes and Pharisees are in the multitude or they will join the multitude. And the English verbiage, to me, bears that out as he starts condemning them. Woe unto you, scribes, Pharisees, hypocrites. I don't know that you would say that if they're not even there. So, once again, verse 1 would be the multitude and his disciples. Question. Is Jesus saying something behind people's backs? He's not. You know, what he has to say, he don't mind saying it openly. Do we live in that world today? There's a lot of people that love to say something behind people's backs. That's not our Lord here. So we start with, then spake Jesus to the multitudes and to his disciples, saying, so here we go. The scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. A large portion of our lesson will come from that statement. It may seem insignificant to the reader, but consider with me, if you will, and then this will tie into a personal application to all Christians. The scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. Was there a chair that maybe had Moses written across the top of it, do you think? No, we're not talking about a chair like that. You realize it's been some 1,300 years from the death of Moses until where we are right now in history. 1,300 years. if there would have been a seed, it would probably be gone at this point. So what does that mean? The scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. In order to, as I say, flesh this out, I don't even know if that's a good term, but I say it all the time. You know, it's one of those things you grow up with. But let's flesh this out. It appears that the words of this chapter were spoken while Jesus was still in the temple. Now, that is a serious place to be addressing the people. The temple is not just an ordinary place to the Jews and to the scribes and the Pharisees. And it appears that everything in this chapter that Jesus was there in the temple. Jesus speaks to both multitudes and his disciples. He wants his own disciples to understand this. On this same day, Jesus had already plainly shown the disobedience, envy, and condemnation of the Jewish leaders. Now, we studied that, if you remember. Jesus taught some parables, did he not? And the Jewish leaders, if you recall, at the end of one of those parables, perceived that he was talking about them. This he had done via parables of the two sons, the wicked husbandman, and the wedding feast. That would be in Matthew 21:45. He had answered all the Jews' tricky questions and in the process revealed their dishonesty. Who can think of one of the, quote, tricky questions that they came up with? So what? Yeah. So should we pay taxes or not? Now, did they really want to know if they should pay taxes? No, they didn't. So Jesus dealt with that and revealed to them their dishonesty. Due to there being a hopeless case, he now publicly proclaims to all just how evil they are in chapter 23. Now, I got a question. Is the Christian faith just being nice to people and never ruffling anybody's feathers? And is the Christian faith that we follow our master? That would be our master Jesus. And did he set the example for his followers? And if he did, and I contend that he did, you got to contend with chapter 23. The Christian faith is not a faith that people just get to walk all over you. Our faith should cause us to have convictions and stand on those convictions. And that's what Jesus did right here. So this concept of sitting in Moses' seat, I want us to do something that a lot of people, I became a Christian back in 92 and knew nothing about the church. And as I've encountered people, I hear statements that I may have made myself at one time. And that is, once I get the New Testament figured out, then I'll work on the Old Testament. Folks, if you don't have an understanding of your Old Testament, you will never understand the New Testament. Because if you don't know anything about the Old Testament, whenever he says the scribes and the Pharisees sat in Moses' seat, who's Moses? What is the significance of Moses? So there is a significance in that statement that he makes to the scribes and the Pharisees. So let's consider it. Let's flip over. If you can either flip with me or you can just listen to the reading. Exodus chapter 3, verse 4. What I want to do here is I want to kind of just point out a few of the highlights of Moses' life. In Exodus 3, Moses is in the field tending to Jethro's flock. So he carries the flock to the backside of the mountain. And in Exodus 3:4, it says, And when the Lord saw that he had turned aside to see, and that is because this bush is burning, God called unto him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Draw not nigh hither, but put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place wherein thou standest is holy ground. Who do you know that that's ever occurred to or happened to? I don't know of anybody. When Jesus says the scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat, Moses is not anybody, folks. And I'm afraid that too many people read over that as though it's just filler. If you miss the scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat, you will not understand to the fullest or even a portion of what he's going to do. You're going to think, wow, that's very strange whenever he says to the scribes and the Pharisees, you're like whitened sepulchres. Brother Jim Tomlin passed away recently. Jim Tomlin, I thought the world of him. And I'm assuming that if he is not cremated, and that's none of my business, that he'll probably have a casket. How many of you have ever gone to a funeral home and seen a casket? They're very pretty on the outside. I mean, some of them have the gold trim and all polished and pearled. Jesus said to the scribes and Pharisees, you're like the casket on the outside. You're all pretty. But on the inside, you know what's on the inside of caskets? Dead bodies. If you're the scribes and the Pharisees, how do you take that? While he's standing in the temple. Folks, I'm telling you. So Moses is tending to Jethro's flock, and all of a sudden God calls him. That doesn't happen to just anyone. Not only does he call him, but he also says this to him. Hey, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to Egypt. As Chad had mentioned in one of our earlier lessons, the most powerful man on the face of the earth, you're going to go and stand before him, the sheep herder, and you're going to say, hey, the God that I serve, let all these people go that's serving you. Easy task, right? I say not. Now, every bit of what I'm going to talk about should solidify and make Matthew chapter 23, verse 2, that much more rich when you hear the scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. I can't emphasize that enough. So Moses, in this discussion with God, that doesn't normally happen either, but anyhow, he says, God, wait a minute, not me, I can't speak very well, and I don't, starts making the excuses. God has him to lay his staff down, it turns into a snake, he picks it back up, and finally he says, look, I'm not an eloquent man. He says, well, look, Aaron is coming right here. He's going to be your spokesman. We all know the story. But have we ever considered it? Moses was not an average Joe. And he was hand-chosen by God. Then we go over to Exodus chapter 14, verse 6. Exodus 14. I printed me out some notes, and it was 10 pages, so I thought I can't print all these scriptures as well. 14, verse 6. And it was told the king of Egypt that the people fled, and the heart of Pharaoh and of his servants was turned against the people, and they said, "Why have we done this, that we have let Israel go from serving us?" Well, now, you remember the story. Moses goes to Pharaoh as God had commissioned. He tells him, let the people go, and after 10 plagues and the death of the firstborn, Pharaoh lets him go. And here in this verse, he comes to himself and he says, what have we done? Why have we let these people go? Well, you know a lot of the rest of the story. They saddle up, get all the chariots, and they head after them. What kind of man would it take to lead the people through the wilderness, and all of a sudden you got the Red Sea in front of you and the Egyptian army behind you, and not lose faith? Scribes and Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. So what does Moses do? He looks to God. God says, stretch forth your rod. Sea opens. Oh, yeah, I did forget that. Children of Israel wasn't very happy. They were already saying to Moses, hey, look, what have you done? Let us go back. Well, I thought you'd been praying for years for deliverance. But now you're ready to go back because there's some difficulty. We don't see that with Moses. Moses is not saying, hey, wait a minute, let's go back. Scribes and Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. Exodus chapter 20. We know that as the giving of the 10 Commandments. Moses goes up on the mount, and the commission is, if there is as much as an animal that touches the mount while you're up there, it shall be shot with an arrow and killed. Man, same thing. Nobody goes on the mount. Moses is up there receiving the 10 Commandments, and all of a sudden God seems like he turns like that. And we know later on why he did that. Because the people down in the camp had made a golden calf and started worshiping it. Has it dawned on you yet that maybe if you were Moses, you might say, you know, trying to deliver these people to the promised land? God, come on, get somebody else and walk off. We don't see that with Moses, do we? The scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. Let's go a little further. In Numbers chapter 1, we find Moses given the task, just a little task, of numbering the children of Israel. Boy, what a task. Was Moses afraid of work? No, not at all. So Moses numbers the children of Israel. Then as they are numbered in Numbers chapter 13, we move to a pivotal point in the children of Israel's lives. It's Moses had delivered them to the entrance of Canaan. And they choose 12 spies. I think it's ingenious how they did this. A man from each tribe. In other words, Brother Chris is not going to have to take Brother Martin's word if they're from 2 different tribes. We're going to send a representative from each tribe in to go and spy out the land. They come back. If you're me, you're thinking, Moses thinks, man, I've accomplished what God gave me the task to do. I've got us, we're right here. They're going in, they're going to spy out the land, and then they're going to come back. God doesn't lie, and boy, howdy, in a couple of days, we'll be going into the promised land. Well, Joshua and Caleb came back with the other 10. The other 10 quite simply said, it's exactly the way God said it. I find it fascinating. If you've not read this account, please, in your spare time, in your Bible study, read it. It's exactly the way that God said it. 2 of these rascals is carrying a stave and got grapes on it. It takes 2 men to carry. Now, I went and bought a little thing of the cotton candy grapes. Y'all have heard of those at the grocery store? And when the lady said it was $5 and something, and it filled up a little bowl, I said, no, there's got to be a mistake. And she said, oh, no, there's not. I can only imagine what those grapes, those rascals were toting. They had charged you at Ingles for those. They said it's exactly the way that God said it. But, 3-letter word that means contrast. But there's giants in the land. I'd love to have a class on the giants of the Bible. Folks, there's some fascinating stuff revealed in Scriptures about giants. If you think Goliath was big, you've not discovered the passages that talks about giants. Goliath was not big compared to the giants in the Bible. Oh, he was a big guy. It's another study for another time. They said, yes, it's just as God said, but there's giants in the land. So guess what, folks? We're heading back to Egypt. We're going back to Egypt. Now, I have to wonder. Here's Moses. He's got, I've heard speculations, I don't know that anyone knows, anywhere from 2 to 3 million people. Folks, this man Moses guiding this many people. Joshua and Caleb said, we can do it. And they said, no, we can't. And God said, I'm going to destroy this group of people. What would that do to you if you're Moses? You've brought the people out of the land. This has taken tremendous effort. And you've got them to the promised land to hear God say, I'm going to destroy all of them. You know what? Moses would have been right to say, God, I'm on your side. I agree. Just go ahead and have at it. That's not the story, is it? Y'all know the story. Moses pleads with God. Don't do it. What will the nations think of us and think of you if you've delivered the children of Israel out of bondage to bring them out here and slaughter them? The scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. I don't know about you, this seat's getting mighty big. It took a big man to fill this seat. So, God says, after Moses pleads to him, you know, you're right. I won't destroy the people. Save those 20 years old and upwards. Now, that's an interesting statement as well. God said, those that murmured against me will go into the wilderness and die. Why? Because they murmured against me. Now, I've got to call a time out a second. Because I'm at the age now, 58 years old, that fortunately, once you get older, you can make statements. When you're 28, people go, yeah, he don't really know what he's talking about. You get to 58 and people say, maybe he does, because, he don't have that much longer left. Any of you had children that before they turned 20 that was already grumbling and complaining? That's interesting. I'll let you think on that one, and I didn't write it. It's not original with me. That's interesting. Those that were 19 years old got a pass. Those that were 20 years old did not get a pass. If you've got the answer to all that after class, I'd love to chat. So Moses delivers the bad news to him. Yeah, I pleaded to God that he would save you. He wouldn't destroy you. He's agreed. But guess what? Now we're going to wander in the wilderness until those 20 years and older die. You know what they say? Oh, hold on. We didn't realize it's going to turn into this. No, we're good. We're just going into the land of Canaan. Moses said, oh, no, you won't either. Oh, no. The Lord has spoken. You're going into the wilderness to die. While they were wandering around in the wilderness, what the repetitive response to Moses was? Have you brought us out here to die? When I'm reading that section, I want to hear him say, yes, you remember when we didn't go into Canaan and God said we're coming out here to die? Yes, that's what we're doing, folks. We're going to die here. Now, here's the sad thing. I've got a lot of Bible questions. Did Moses know when they left Canaan, because God had said, those 20 years and older will die in the wilderness, save Joshua and Caleb? Did Moses pick up on his name was missing there? Did he pick up on that Aaron's name was missing there? And did he pick up on that Miriam's name was missing there? And if you notice in the text, it doesn't say, excuse me, God, I hate to bring up this little infraction here because I know you don't make mistakes, but you meant, Joshua, Caleb, Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, or at least Joshua and Caleb and Moses. He didn't do that. Would you have been tempted to? The scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. I realize I'm taking a lot of time in this class. Folks, this is huge. They get into the wilderness. They're complaining constantly. You brought us out here. We don't have water. We need water. We're thirsty, and our cattle's thirsty, and our children are thirsty. And Moses goes to God and asks, what should I do? God, the people are thirsty. I understand I'm probably at odds with some people on what I'm about to say, and that's fine. I don't believe it does any damage to the text whatsoever. God says to go and to speak to the rock, and water will come forth. Moses goes, and here's where I'm at odds. A lot of people say Moses couldn't go into the promised land because he struck the rock with his staff. If you want to believe that, that's fine. I'm not going to, have odds with anybody about that. I don't believe that's what it is personally. I've done a lot of studying on it. My personal beliefs are. God says to Moses, you and Aaron will not go into the land of promise because you sanctified me not. Do you remember, does anyone remember off the cuff what Moses said to the people prior to the water flowing? Here it is. Must we fetch you rebels water? I believe there it is. I believe that God said, oh no, you took the credit for this water. Must we, who is we? Moses and Aaron. Must we fetch you rebels water? He strikes the rock and the water flows. Now, once again, whatever you want to believe, that's your belief. But I believe there it was. Moses took the credit, he and Aaron. We implies Moses and Aaron. Must we fetch ye rebels water? The water's flowing. Whew. Cattle's drinking. People are drinking. Can you only imagine how much water must be flowing? And God says, Moses, you're not going into the promised land because you sanctified me not. How many of you would be ready to say, that's it. You know, what? I can't do anything right. Hey, if you've ever been around human beings, you see that when people are at their wits' end. Was it important to Moses, do you think, that he got to go into the promised land? Do you think he really wanted to go, or was he just, we really don't care? No, I believe that was his mission. And to be told, after these people have been grumbling and complaining, you're not going. It's very sad, the latter part, or at least it is to me. God takes Aaron and Moses and carries them up to the mount. Aaron's got on the priestly garments and he strips them off of him. Puts them on the new priest. Aaron stays on the mountain and the rest of them come down. Then they're getting closer to time to head back to go into the promised land. And God says, Moses, come with me on the mount. This is one of those tough reads because you know what's coming because you've already read it. So he carries Moses up on the mount. And I want to take a look at this, and then we're going to get back into Matthew. We've been in Matthew the whole time. We've just been stuck on one verse. Deuteronomy chapter 34, verse 5. Deuteronomy 34, 5. So Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab, according to the word of the Lord. And he buried him in the valley in the land of Moab over against Bethshabor, but no man knoweth of his sepulchre unto this day. Wait a minute. Whoa. In case you missed it. He buried him. There's only two people on the mount. God and Moses. Somebody said, well, old Moses, he's been rode hard and put up wet. I don't know if y'all have ever heard that expression. I have. No. Let's see here. Verse 7 is very intriguing to me of this story. And Moses was 120 years old. That's a pretty old fella. When he died, his eyes were not dim. Boy, howdy. If I had Moses' eyes, I'd probably be down there. I wouldn't be dropping my glasses, hitting the microphone. His eyes were not dim, nor his natural force abated. Folks, there's no getting around it. God carries Moses up on the mountain and kills him there and buries him. The scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. One last verse. Numbers chapter 12, verse 3, and then we'll be moving along. Numbers 12, verse 3. You know, you put as much weight as you want to into this statement. Numbers 12:3. Now the man Moses was very meek above all the men which were upon the face of the earth. Is meekness a wonderful characteristic? I mean, meek. I'm going to ask a question. If God, you kind of got an overview of Moses' life. If God ended Moses' life, what do you think that his concepts and mindset is to the scribes and the Pharisees, that they were not meek at all? They were making up their own laws, binding them on other people, and wouldn't as much as lift one of those burdens with a little finger. They were making false accusations against his son. I wonder, do we serve the same God yesterday, today, and forever? Have y'all ever heard that before? God is the same yesterday. These people, the meaning of they sit in Moses' seat, they were the leaders just like Moses was the leader. And boy, had they ever fouled it up. And that's what, woe unto you scribes, Pharisees, hypocrites. You know, some people might think that that's three groups of people: scribes, Pharisees, and hypocrites. No, that's not what it is. Woe unto you scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites. They claimed that they were God's leadership. True? They were the furthest thing from it. So when Jesus starts this scathing chapter, I hope that you have appreciated. It done me a lot of good to go back and revisit who was this Moses. Jesus could have said, let me get back over here to Matthew chapter 23. I think Michael's already on the move, so Chad, he'll probably be happy I hadn't done much damage to his lesson at all. The scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. Here they are, they're the leaders. Jesus says, all therefore whatsoever they bid you, that observe and do. Now let's stop there a second. Whatever the scribes and the Pharisees tell you to do, you're to do it. Somebody says, this doesn't make any sense. Well, you got to understand. Jesus has already exposed a lot of things. If they want the religious titles, call no man your father, rabbi, rabbi, Jesus says, you don't do that. He's already dealt with that. What Jesus is saying here, when they tell you to do something that is in accordance with the law of Moses, you do it. How many people you know today that says, no, they're corrupt, and if they're corrupt, I'm not going to do it. No, it's not what Jesus said. Jesus said, whatever they tell you to do, you do it, if it's in compliance with the law of Moses. because that's the law that they're still under. That observe and do, but do not after their works, for they say and do not. Someone that tells you to do something and they themselves don't do it, is there a word that we normally use for those people? Hypocrites. Wow, that's amazing. It's just almost perfect that he says this. They say, but they don't do it. That's what makes them hypocrites. Now I'm going to ask a question real quick. Is there any questions or comments? Questions on the light side. Any comments? I always like to do that if I'm teaching the class. That way, it's. Now I said that we would circle back around and we would make application. What does this mean? For instance, somebody says, look, it's a neat story. Is that the second bell? I thought he just walked out. And here it is. Romans chapter 12, verse 1 and 2. Make sure that we are not like the scribes and the Pharisees, the hypocrites. I beseech you, therefore, by the mercies of God, that you present your body a living sacrifice. The scribes and the Pharisees did not do that. I beseech you, therefore, by the mercy of God, that you present your body a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable unto God. Wholly acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. You're not doing anything special when you do what God tells you to do. But be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Watch this. So that you may prove what is that good, acceptable, and perfect will of God. Question, did the scribes and the Pharisees prove what was that good, acceptable, and perfect will of God? They did not. Is it imperative that Christians today do that? It is. And guess what? When you don't, woe unto you, Christians, hypocrites. If it does not apply, I'd love to know why it wouldn't. Thank you.